Hello, my name's Tara Tenney, and I am the daughter of LaVoy and Jeanette Finicum. My mother asked me to make this video. She's out on the range dealing with cattle at this point, but we have an important announcement that we need to make. And you'll have to forgive me, I'm going to be reading so that I can have my thoughts be clear and I don't miss anything. I wanted to start with the date. Today is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. Many of you know we have been pressing forward, fighting to see to it that Dad has his day in court. You may already know that the judge has heard our oral arguments and is now granted a period of time wherein she gets to ponder on as to whether or not she's going to dismiss this case and see whether or not we go to trial or not. So it's a very tender time for our family. And a short recap for those who are new to the story: in 2016, my father was shot and killed by law enforcement as a result of a falsified threat assessment. We have evidence. We have a whistleblower. We have evidence of collusion between, DOJ, while he was participating in a protest to petition the government for a redress of grievance and staking a claim of adverse possession. There was no medical assistance rendered to my father. There was no warrant out for his arrest, no charges, no arraignments, no preliminary hearings, no indictment, no trial by jury. He was denied his right to due process, despite his hands up in the universal sign of surrender. See the link below for those who are new to the story of his murder scene. Ongoing politics is continuing to prove that bureaucratic bullying to be a systemic problem. While average Americans have been dealing with this type for years, and I know many of our followers are victims of this. I've heard your stories. I've seen it in your eyes. I've seen your suffrage. We are now seeing this bureaucratic bullying openly happening to high-profile cases. Anybody who's following politics will see the story of Trump and Flynn, etc. It is no longer just happening to everyday Americans like my father or the Hammond family in Oregon or the Bundy family from Nevada and the hundreds of others who have personally experienced this, who are victims of this type of bureaucratic bullying. Reputations and businesses have been destroyed as a result of this type, and my father was left to bleed out in the snow. We have always known, and my father knew, that this type, our case, is only the tip of the iceberg of this type. When you have a centralized control of power, our founders testified that tyranny would be the result, and that's what we're experiencing now. And it's in the form of label lynching and bureaucratic bullying. Just yesterday, Congressman Andy Biggs announced or accused Obama of a coup. And he said, something we have not seen in American history. I want you to see the link below. I provided the article link to that. This is huge. High-profile cases are beginning to feel the sting that many Americans have had to suffer through for many years. This is huge. It's a window of opportunity for us. Anyway, moving on. In an effort to connect the dots for those that are listening who may be new to the story, the FBI entrapped General Michael Flynn, like they did my dad, LaVoy. The FBI manipulated the court with FISA to surveil Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, like they did my dad, LaVoy. The FBI shot my dad, hid the information, and is under investigation, the Department of Justice. The FBI manipulated the officers that were involved in the shooting of my dad. The scene was left open for 9 hours, unsecure, protocol being broken. This is being discovered in court. The FBI used falsified threat assessments from 2012 to escalate the Malheur National Wildlife occupation to what ultimately resulted in the murder of my father. The FBI used numerous informants to entrap my dad and other Malheur protesters. The FBI withheld exculpatory evidence in the Bundy cases and which my father was there, and that evidence applies to our case. The FBI had my dad killed and manufactured a crime. We're seeing these same systemic problems. There's a pattern that we're seeing that I hope that you're connecting the dots, and they're connecting in horrific ways. And so back to our case. Despite the conscious, shocking evidence that we have gathered from the discovery of 3 trials thus far, the judge of our case is heavily leaning towards dismissing due to the ideology of sovereign immunity of agents, of officers. I provided a link in the description of the idea of what this sovereign immunity means. It's a very dangerous doctrine. So the reason I'm speaking to you now is because we have an action item for you. Many people say, what can we do? What can we do? How can we help? And this is like a slow-moving beast, and we have so appreciated people's emotional and financial support through this horrific ordeal the last almost 5 years. But we now have an action item, and it is time sensitive. We need you to handwrite a Friends of the Court letter to Judge Sullivan outlining the following bureaucratic bullying connections that I've just reviewed with you. So she will be presented with an overwhelming response that ignoring justice on the mere technicality of sovereign immunity for agents and officers involved in the murder of my dad is not okay. LaVoy, my dad, he deserves his day in court. We have provided examples of letters that you could write in the comments. We have provided instructions in the comments of the address, the case number, etc. Please mail 1 copy to the court. We provided the address, and mail an identical copy to my mom's P.O. box or her email. And the reason why we're asking for this is if we are ignored, we are and denied our right to giving my dad his day in court on this mere technicality of immunity of agents, we are setting in motion our chess move for the next play of this sick game in politics. And so we would really appreciate those who do write this simple. It doesn't have to be eloquent. You don't have to be a lawyer to write this. Read the examples that we've provided, and that would be such a great blessing to us in our effort at this very moment when the judge is reviewing and heavily leaning towards dismissal for a lot of the defendants that we're prosecuting. Once again, we thank you. We thank you so much for your prayers, your faith, your emotional support, your people who just show up out of nowhere and provide the aid that is needed, fixing fence, hauling cows, allowing cows to be on feedlots, providing food, fixing up yard and house, and providing money for us to press forward in this. And it's coming down to the wire, and we continue to need your help. And so if you could spend some time this week and draft that and send it off, we would be most grateful. I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, one last thing, if you are wondering how else you can help and you have not yet had the opportunity to read my dad's novel that he wrote, or the book that I wrote after his murder. His novel is titled Only by Blood and Suffering, Regaining of Lost Freedom, and the book that I wrote to help raise funds for our case is called Liberty Rising, One Cowboy's Ascent. In that book, you get to learn the story of the Hammonds, what got my dad to Oregon, and the aftermath. And so 2 books that will help financially support our case. You can get that and read those. I provided those links to my mom's website in the comments, as well as the link to Amazon. And so we appreciate you. We want to hear from you. We'll be sending this in our MailChimp to all of our contacts, and we'll also be sending this message on YouTube as well. Please share with all of your connections. Invite them to participate in this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I wish my mom did this video. She's much better at this than I am. And you're all familiar with her face better than mine. But we love you. God bless. Take care of yourselves. Have a good evening.